Hey guys, before we start this episode, I wanted to talk to you about Type 1 Lifting. So Type 1 Lifting is a clothing line that proceeds of the shirts and tanks and everything else goes to the Children's Diabetes Foundation. So this all came about with me and seeing a 5-year-old girl in the emergency department that had new onset of diabetes. So just take a look at the website. It's www.type1lifting.com. So just check it out. If you don't buy anything, that's perfectly fine. I would just like for you just to take a look and just see what we have. So like I said before, www.type1lifting.com. And guys, I hope you enjoy the show. All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Type 1 Lifting Podcast. I have a CrossFit athlete, owner of CrossFit 061, and owner of the Zeus method, Nick Urankar. How you doing?
Fantastic. How about yourself?
Oh, no complaints. Thank you, for, like I said before, taking the time to do this podcast. Before we talk about CrossFit, I want to talk about, being a dad. So when did your kids actually start getting involved with you that like they want to start to work out with you?
I wouldn't say they're actually even involved in that yet, honestly. They both grew up in the gym, so I think that it's just been a part of their life. I don't think they look at it as anything other than it's what everybody does. Everybody goes to the gym all the time. Everybody has equipment all over their house. I think as far as the working out part, when they want to, I do it, and when they don't, I don't push them. We talk about it a lot, but it's kind of up to them.
Yeah. So do they know that their dad is like a professional athlete and all that, or they just think your dude is just like a regular dad?
I mean, definitely a regular dad, minus their friends' parents and their friends. I guess that I'm known by a lot of them, so their friends will talk about me. I'm the Hulk or the Thor, or your dad's that one guy, right? My youngest actually just recently started telling me that I'm famous. I don't know where or why, because I'm definitely not. But so that's been actually funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're quietly proud.
Okay, very cool. And you have just 2 daughters, correct?
Correct. Yeah, 7, and the other one just had a birthday 2 days ago.
Oh.
Just turned 11.
Oh, nice, crazy, huh? Yeah. Yeah, I have a 5-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl, and like my son's just getting into working out with me, kind of.
Okay.
So like I have like a defensive lacrosse stick, and have him use that for like doing his clean and jerks and like back squatting and stuff like that. Because obviously I don't want him to put on any weight, because I don't want him to I mean his mobility's okay, but it's not the greatest. But like you said, I don't want him to. I don't pressure him in anything. If he wants to be done, he's done. If he wants to come in, come in.
Yeah, they go through phases. We like last year, our daughter wanted a barbell, so we bought her a new barbell, and she used it like twice. But she worked out a ton before, so there's just they go through 2 or 3 months where they love it, and then they're kids and they want to go play.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting when they hit those teen years what it looks like.
Yeah. So you have quite the experience in the CrossFit space. So when did all this come about?
I started CrossFit in 2009.
Okay. Was this after football at Indiana State University? Okay.
Yep. So I played football in college. When I finished, a little backstory. Actually, lots of injuries. I actually broke my back in high school. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it. As odd as it is, I fractured my L5 spondylolisthesis, and then I broke it again. I was back squatting, and somebody took out the catchers. It was my end of my junior year, and the weight just crushed me. We went to failure. It was like 4 something, and broke my back, and that was really bad. So when I actually finished football, I told myself I was never lifting again. I had so much back pain.
Yeah.
And I started running long distance. My goal was actually to run the Western States 100. Mm-hmm. If you know what that is, you're either a runner or somebody knows what it is. But that was my goal until I ran a half marathon. And after I ran that, I said, I'm never running anything farther than this. So I went through a phase of running a lot of half marathons.
Yeah.
And then a buddy of mine was like, dude, this is not your sport. You need to check out this thing called CrossFit.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, so when you were running, did that hurt your back as well for like the...
Yeah, I'd go through spurts. I'd go out and I'd run and it'd bother me and I'd have to stop. And then there'd be other days where I could go for an hour and a half. So it was very hit or miss, really. And that was kind of my biggest struggle was I just thought my life was going to be that. Mm-hmm. From my early to mid-20s on, I just got to deal with this back issue.
Yeah, and then CrossFit came in. So what made you kind of stick with it, or like what was it like a workout that you did that was like, man, okay, I know this is for me.
Oh, I mean, if you started CrossFit, I think any time before 2011, I would say, mm-hmm. your first workout was Fran.
Yeah,
like that just everybody. So of course, I didn't want to do it when I saw the video. I saw the 2008 CrossFit Games, Every Second Counts. That's the video I saw that made me think this is real. Mm-hmm. So I went to the basement, I did Fran, and I thought I looked it all up. It was 2.5 minutes was like a really good time. And I was like, well, I'm going to be the best in the world. I'm going to go and I can do that. It's only 21:59, in my head. I went down to the basement and it crushed me. And I remember I crawled up the stairs. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what this thing was happening.
Yep.
And I told my wife, I said, this is legit. I'm all in.
Nice.
Right then.
Very cool. And then, so you've been at the CrossFit, like regionals and CrossFit games, I believe 5 times at the games, and regionals like 8 times, or was that?
Yeah, I went to every single regional.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the post-sanctionals. So I did sanctionals in 2010.
Okay.
Which there was a regional, and it was odd how they did it back then, but I didn't qualify past. Basically, sanctionals was like the Open in 2010.
Yeah.
And I was not very good. Didn't even move past the first round. And then 2011 was the first Open. So in the Open era, I went to every single regional.
Okay, very cool.
2011 through 2018.
Yeah. So what was that environment like with regionals? I've only been to one regionals. I was at the Southeast regional when Chandler Smith and Ben Smith did that deadlift workout, and they were kind of like chasing after each other. So what's the environment like being at regionals?
Oh man, I think I was if you're familiar with regionals at all, from probably 2012 to 2018, Central East Regional and the Central Regional. That's where I was. That was one. It was always Froning. It was just so many. It was the regional that everybody went to, and they're like, that's like the games. It was packed all the time. It was just, it was electric. It was one of those. I would say that was regionals was like, if you thought of what CrossFit was as a grassroots competition, it was regionals.
Yeah.
Regionals was, that was like that was scarier and harder mentally than the games.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember someone saying that, whoever won that region usually would win the CrossFit Games, and it was always like, you're in the mix, and Rich Froning, Scott Panchik, and all these other studs.
Holmberg.
Yeah,
there were so many people.
Yeah,
that regional had some of the best guys that never made the games.
Yeah, which is crazy.
There's a guy named Nick Forey. He's probably he is the best athlete that has never made the games. And no one knows who he is unless you were in our regional. And if you were in our regional, I mean, he missed the games 4 times by a point.
Oh.
And he would have destroyed the games. He was a games athlete. He wasn't a regionals athlete.
Yeah.
So he would have been top 5 at the games.
Crazy.
But he never got that opportunity.
Yeah.
And he just looked like nobody. He was like a Ben Smith back in the day, where you're like, who is this kid?
Yeah.
Just comes out and just crushes everybody.
Yeah. Have you ever thought my thing is if they're not making it to regionals, would they think about moving or something like that to at least another region that might be more beneficial for them to even get to the games?
That happened all the time.
Yeah.
The hard part was if you lived in the middle of a region.
Yeah.
So, Nick, who's the guy I'm talking about, he owned a gym. He was in an area where he was basically in the middle state.
Yep.
I do know somebody that lived in Memphis, Tennessee, and was in our region and got 20-something or 30th, and the very next year went to Mississippi.
Yep.
And made the games.
Nice. Yeah.
Made the games the next year. Because I remember when I didn't see his name in the Central East, I messaged him and I was like, hey, where you at? And he's like, Mississippi. And I was like, don't you own a gym in Tennessee? And he's like, well, I just registered unaffiliated. And I was like, but I think a lot of times people would ask that question of, why don't athletes do this?
Mm-hmm.
It was done.
Yeah.
It was done all the time. People were moving and but you gotta, 95% of people can't just up and move purely to try to qualify for the game. So, people would ask me that all the time. That was a question I got for a decade.
Yeah.
And I would always tell them, like, if I can't qualify out of my region, then I probably don't deserve to be there anyway.
Mm-hmm. No, I hear you. Yeah.
It doesn't matter who's there. Like, if I'm losing to 3 or 5 guys, then I'm not beating them at the games. So it was just changing that mindset of, like, I just need to beat everybody, but I don't know. There's just a lot of ways you had to just mentally. It was just about your performance. You couldn't be focused on all these other guys. That was what destroyed people.
Yeah.
It was focusing on what trying to beat them when it was like you got to take your chances when you get them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So did you ever get like a fanboy like with like Scott or like Rich at all, being like, holy shit, I'm actually like working out next to these guys at all, or are you just like the whole time you're just focused?
Well, so you got to remember, I started before them.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I actually like Rich 2010 was when I did sectionals, and he did sectionals, and he won his sectional that year. And that was the first. It was like, who is this guy? And he did really well, and I met him because he was in our region. So I met him early on, knew him from the beginning. Same thing with like Dan Bailey. Dan Bailey was in our region, and me and Dan used to do these faster competitions in 2010 before anybody knew who anybody was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like me and him competing. So I would go to Columbus and train with him and Miko Salo. If anybody doesn't know who he is, you need to know who he is for your CrossFit history. But I would go and train with these guys, and actually in 2011 was kind of when I got to know everybody.
Yeah.
And then 2012 actually was the year Scott came in.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to wear this red bandana. And he actually, that year in 2012, he got 5th and I got 6th. We took 5. He basically beat me to go to the games, and then ended up getting like 4th, and that was when he started. So he took me out of going to the games by coming in. I don't like him for that. But yeah, so no, 2012, like that was when I met Scott. No one knew who he was, and me and him were battling the whole weekend at regionals.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got 6th, and he got 5th, and he got to go to the games, and I got to stay home.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't that motivate you to actually get better? And because like that incident happens at all, or?
Oh man, that's a tough. It has, a year is a long time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things. Like in 2010, when I didn't make it to sectionals, there was a lot of guys that were full of themselves, is what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wasn't very good. It was obvious I wasn't very good. And I remember I left, and I told my wife's dad as we got in the car, I said, I'm going to go back next year and beat them all. And I went back and I didn't beat them all. I mean, Dan Bailey ended up beating me, and another guy, Joe Weigel, and then I got 3rd. But all the guys that I was like, that were acting all whatever, I beat them. And it was 2012, I remember I finished the final workout, and I was lying on the ground, looking up at the lights, and just thinking, like, that's it. Like, these are the same lights I was looking at last year when I qualified.
Yeah.
And then Scott Panchik came over, put his hand out, and was like, get up, man, go walk around and breathe. And I remember I thought, we just finished. You just beat me. You're excited. Don't come over here. So I remember I was like, I don't like this guy now. I want to beat this guy. And, you get that fire for a month, and then you've got 4 months of, like, winter, and it's
mm-hmm.
like, So there's a lot of things that can happen over the year. It's keeping that discipline.
Mm-hmm.
In certain years I was better at it than others. But yeah, there were certain things that fired me up more than others. Things that probably people would be like, that's what did it? That's what flipped your switch? And I'm like, yeah. And then other times they'd be like, oh, that's got to get you going. And I'm like, no, like that didn't do it. So
yeah.
There are certain things that really got me. But yeah, no, it was cool kind of getting to compete with so many people as everybody. I mean, I got to watch everybody grow or fall So it's an interesting. There's a lot of storylines.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So you've been to the CrossFit Games 3 times as an individual, and then 2 times. Well, actually, 1 time as a master. Then
you wouldn't count. Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, you qualified, but there was no games.
Yeah. So
you could say it by default.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were at Carson and Madison. So what? Which obviously Carson was like memorable and stuff like that, and Madison was pretty good too. Which one did you like the most, and which one did you think that you didn't like the most, like could make it better?
I would say that the setup in Carson was better. Or not, no, the setup in Madison was better, especially with I think 2018 was when they really used the facility when we did crit.
Mm-hmm.
We did the bike races, we did the obstacle course. There was just more, the ability to do more. Carson, I think, was more the nostalgia of the tennis stadium, and I think the tennis stadium was fantastic at night, and you just felt so close. So I know a lot of people talk about that, but the heat was just rough.
Mm-hmm.
I think that in Carson, it was the heat that was really, really, really tough.
Yeah.
Whereas in Madison, that wasn't an issue.
Mm-hmm. And you're used to that weather too, so.
Yeah, no, the weather in Madison was not a big deal at all. But Carson, that sun is just bakes you.
Yeah.
So most of the stuff that my stories of the games, the worst workouts were the ones where it was just so hot, so hot, and you can't tell somebody how hot, when you're inside a stadium that's just boiling, you're never gonna really understand what I mean when I say there was a moment during Murph where I curled up and saw my own shadow and tried to hide in my own shadow, and I actually thought I was. And you laugh, but imagine being that out of it, where you're literally crouching down into a ball, hiding in your own shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Can you even do I legitimately probably did it 30 or 40 times, but I thought it was helping cool me off.
Yeah.
I was hiding in my own shadow.
Yeah. And I remember Annie Thor's daughter, I saw the video of her doing it, and she was just an absolute wreck. She couldn't even.
Cara Webb, same thing.
Oh geez, that was when she fell to the ground, that was scary. So just seeing her overexhausted, literally bringing her out with a gurney, just because she can't even walk straight, or she doesn't know what she's going on. That's crazy.
It was so hot. It wasn't. Everyone's oh, Murph was. It wasn't Murph. It was the length of time we had to be out there doing that stuff, and we didn't have any water. We didn't have anything to cover us. It was just, it was bad.
Yeah.
That was a bad experience. That was the worst experience in a workout. I remember I was 20 minutes in. I saw the clock, and I thought it was a 55-minute time cap, and I'm I can't make it out here 55 minutes. I can't make it out here. I was thinking about there is no way. Let alone will I finish. I can't physically stay out here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a bad spot to be in 20 minutes into an hour-long workout.
Yeah, and especially a lot of people got absolutely wrecked for the rest of the whole games. Did you have that same effect too? You just got absolutely destroyed after that?
Yeah, but it wasn't Murph. It was the 2-mile prone paddleboard. So we did a 2-mile prone paddleboard with just our arms.
Yeah.
And then doing Murph, where it's pull-ups and push-ups, our shoulders were already destroyed. So it was going from that think about it. It was 2 miles paddling with your own arms. Go on a paddleboard for 200 meters and tell me how your arms feel. Now go 2 miles.
Yeah.
So I remember I woke up and I was having breakfast after we did the paddleboard, and I sat down, and Katrin sat with me and my wife, and she looked at me and she was and I was yes. She goes, thank God it's not just me. My shoulders, I can't feel them. So we all were once you did that paddleboard, and then Murph is what did it.
Yeah.
Then we just, nobody could recover.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah.
You just couldn't recover from it. The shoulders, we couldn't put our arms over our head. The next event was the snatch ladder, and then it was heavy DT. I remember I could barely lock out overhead. the bar.
Yeah, that was a crazy.
That was the worst games.
Yeah.
That was the worst games ever.
Yeah.
That was the worst games ever. You ask anybody, and it was by far.
Yeah.
I guess I can't speak for this year. This year was probably pretty rough too.
Mm-hmm.
Physically more so than like other things, but yeah.
Yeah, especially that trail run where they told them like, oh, you got to turn around and go back, and you're like, what?
I would have sat down. I would have been like, "There's only 4 other people. Worst I can do is get 5th."
So you went to in 2019 you went into the Masters division and you actually got first place in the 35 to 39. So what was your thought of like switching from the to going to Masters? Like what were you thinking? Was it like pretty much like you didn't have the time to train, so you just try to do the best you can, or what was going on that you switched to Masters?
Well, my wife was basically like, if you had the option to go Masters, because knew I was a favorite going in. I knew that it was kind of mine to lose, which basically meant if I didn't win, it was a failure.
Yeah.
Like a big failure, in my opinion. So I actually wanted to go team at first. So I did some teams at Wadapalooza, and as I was doing those, I was with some people, and I was like, man, you got to deal with a lot of personalities.
Oh, yeah.
You got to deal with a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And, at the games every year, I mean, like in 2018, I got 20th, which was, I think I got like $10,000, plus I won an event and got some other stuff. I don't know exactly. But I remember when they announced the prizes, and it was like $100,000 for a team and $25,000 for the Masters to win. Well, in order to win team, you got to beat a lot of good teams.
Yeah.
It's but you get $25,000 for winning. So when they came out with the prizes, my wife was like, "You're not going team. It's the same exact amount of money for you to do it on your own. If you did individual, it would purely be selfish, and it takes up a lot of your time."
Yep.
So I think that it'd be a lot less stress if you went in Masters. So I did. So I went Masters purely because it was like just probably the best decision for the family, and for my own sanity.
Yeah.
But then after 19, I basically decided, like, I think I'm going to go and try to qualify again. So I did the Open. I didn't really care. But then I was like, I'm going to qualify through some sanctionals, and I want to deny. I just want to show, like, I can still compete with anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I'll deny it, and I'll go I'll go Master. And then obviously all of this happened, and, here we are. But yeah, the games itself as a Master was much different.
Yeah.
Much different. It was more like the Open, in my opinion. The workouts, anybody could win. You just had to like sell out. So it was kind of like who had it mentally. Physically, it was fine on the body. It felt like a regular training weekend. My biggest thing, and I'd said some things about it before where people I think took it the wrong way. Where I was like, it's interesting to me how many people complain about like the Masters getting the shaft or not getting, publicity or, you name it.
Yeah.
I walked out on an event outside, and there was no one in the stands getting ready to start. And I looked up on the screen, and the individuals were going inside the Coliseum. And I thought, the majority of people inside that Coliseum watching are over 35.
Yep.
And they're choosing where to put their eyes. And what I kind of realized was most people get really upset about the Master stuff because they believe they have a shot, and they want people to watch them. Like, I might make it to the games, and I want to be compensated, and I want to be inside the Coliseum, and I want to do all these things. But then as soon as they don't, they go right back to the shiny object, which is the individuals. And I get it. So I was like, it ended up being where I realized Masters for me was just competing for myself.
Yeah.
It was just having that outlet. So I think in order for there to be a change for Masters athletes, there has to be eyes on the athletes.
I agree. So do you think they should do it like a week and a half deal? Like, Masters and teens do like the first part, and then all of a sudden like the individual guys like go like the last part? Or what's your thoughts?
Would you go? Would you go to the Masters?
I mean, maybe.
Go to the individual.
Oh, yeah.
So, but because that's the question. The question isn't how should they do it to get people to go. It's why aren't people going?
Yeah.
So you're trying to create a way to get more people to go by changing the time, which, yes, that's an option. But the bigger question is, why are when people there, they're not going? Because there's downtime where it's just the Masters.
Yeah.
So my question more so is like, okay, you change it. Does CrossFit actually believe people would go? They have the data. So when people are like, oh, they should do this and this, they might say, guys, you're not going to come.
Mm-hmm.
Like yes, you have representation in the open, but ultimately you'd rather go and watch Matt Frazier over, whoever else.
Joe Schmo in their 40s. So
yeah, which it's an awesome test, and it's a better representation of what CrossFit is.
Yeah.
It's just not as appealing, even for the people who are in it. So I don't know what they're going to do. I know they're going to make some changes. I know they're trying to, by opening it up for 10% in the open and to qualify, they're trying to, I think, open up more representation inside for the athletes.
Yeah.
So if you qualify onto the next round, there's 10,000 people who will push more. So I don't know. We'll see. They're trying to do some things where I think they're trying to be more inclusive.
Yeah.
Which I think will help. But
yeah, I think it also could be considered like a popularity effect, because they see Katrin and Matt Frazier be like having this like huge following, and they're like, hey, I want eyes on me too. I want a big following, or like, I want these many followers. So I think that's another reason why too.
Well, people think that they're going to get publicity, and then one thing I tell most athletes now is the days of you being popular because of making the games don't exist.
Yeah.
You need to make a name for yourself. You need to do something that makes people want to go to you. Just because you qualify, like I used to tell people all the time, I'm like, tell me 10 people that qualified for the games in this year. And they'll just throw out popular names. And I'm like, 4 of them made it. You don't even know. People don't make it every year. Yeah. You just know that person as a games athlete. Or sometimes they're team athletes, but people think they're game. So there's just like, it's really, if you're appealing, if you've got a niche, then yes. But you don't need to be an athlete to be popular.
Yeah.
So
true. So speaking about COVID, you still own a gym right now. So how is that like managing a gym and COVID restrictions?
Well, I own 2 gyms.
Oh, 2 gyms. Okay.
Yeah. So it was obviously tough.
Yeah.
Changing a lot of things. What I kind of realized was there were a lot of expectations I had set. I was always at the gym. I was always training. I was always helping. I never charged for extra stuff. I just helped. And when COVID happened and we got some things, I kind of realized I needed to step back from the gyms because my coaches that I had weren't getting the same respect that I was getting. People really expected me to do a lot of things that I didn't have to do. I just chose to do. So COVID, actually, I was kind of trying to step away a little bit from the gyms, and COVID allowed me to do that a lot faster. So I really set systems in place to allow the other coach to have the responsibility, coaching our coaches, revamping the whole entire facility. So everything's completely different. It runs like a tight ship now, whereas before it was very much this awesome, cool, come in whenever you want, do whatever you want, get fit, hang out place. Yeah. Which turned into certain people being really comfortable around me and other people, not feeling like they had a voice that they could speak up, that certain people could walk up to me whenever they wanted, and other people felt like they didn't get as much of me. So it became a lot of like, dang, this is a lot about like how I am when I'm in the gym. And I guess I don't look at people thinking of me as like somebody they want to be around, or like, oh, that's Nick. I'm just Nick. So I walk around like that. I'm just like, hey guys. And I guess that other people look at me differently than how I think they do. I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, like, I'd be intimidated too. I mean, I'm walking to your gym and then like, here's a CrossFit Games athlete, and you're like, holy crap. Like, you kind of like, I would feel a little timid in the beginning, but maybe some people are just kind of like to hang out in the back, and they're all of a sudden just like kind of open up a little bit later. But I don't know. I mean, everyone's different.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't publicize that I'm a games athlete. Most people came up to me months later and they're like, "I didn't know you were that guy." And I was like, what do you mean that guy? Yeah, they just because I get all the time people would tell me, why don't you tell people? And I'm like, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, we're a gym. You know, like, this is a place for you to get better. It's not for me to tell you how good I am.
Yeah.
Or like what I do. Like,
yeah.
I'm a gym owner.
Mm-hmm. It's mainly just for like get the general population in. It's not like hey, I want games athletes in here. It's I know a lot of gyms that are like, listen, I don't want the high profile people in here. I just want the mom and pops that are just doing their 9 to 5 and working. So because it's sometimes it's not even worth having those type of athletes in there.
Yeah, I could see there's a lot of, it can be viewed a lot of different ways.
Yeah, definitely. So
you have to be able to manage that.
Yeah. So you have a program that you use called the Zeus method. So what can you just tell like a general description of like what it is and how people can use it?
Yeah, Zeus method is a program I started years ago. I followed a bunch of other programs. I shouldn't say I followed a bunch of other programs. I was always trying to find like kind of what worked, and there were certain things that came natural to me, and obviously with my education and learning and trying to figure out as much as I could about all these different backgrounds of different sports, playing sports my whole life, and getting into endurance sports, and obviously with CrossFit, and I had some great strength coaches when I was growing up through college and whatnot, and then there was one day where I was like, man, this stuff's all like cookie cutter, and nobody's really, they're just trying to like sell something. So I realized like, man, I know that I can get people really, really strong, and I know that I can maintain their fitness, and I know I can. So I basically started Zeus about 5 years ago, where it was just like, hey, I'm going to get you really strong, and you can figure out and use your gym, do whatever you want, and I'm going to just show you that you can get really strong while maintaining your fitness and increasing like everything else. And that's how it started. And then eventually people were like, hey, like, this is awesome, but like my gym's programming, I feel like I need something different. So then I just started adding in more, and as I started doing that, people were like, holy cow, like I can't believe all this stuff. And it wasn't very big. I was just literally doing it like, hey, I didn't publicize it, I didn't market it.
Yeah.
And it just kind of started growing, and now it's basically set up to where if you want to be a competitor, we have a program called Premium, which is basically competitive programming. And then we've got a master's program for anybody over 35. That's the same thing, competitive programming. And then we have this our base program, which is called Zeus. And what I realized is a lot of people are constantly scrolling for workouts and like what to do. But when you do that, there's no real plan designed inside of it. You're just like, oh, and you try to find like, my legs are destroyed, let me find an arm workout, or you know. So I created Zeus, which is 5 programs in one. And what it does is each program like rides on a linear progression / just it's developing on itself, but you just choose 1 or 2 of those programs that you might want to follow, and then you can pick and choose what you want to do, what you need to do, and what you have time to do. So it literally is from bodybuilding, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, gymnastics, metcons, aerobic capacity, all that stuff is inside of it. So there's about 8 or 9 different options every day that you can choose from that each program builds on itself. Cool.
Very cool. Yeah. So how's that going? Is you getting like a lot of people subscribing to it, or have like a membership plan?
Yep. Yeah. So we have got, it's $25 for the base program. It's $35 for all of our premium and master stuff. And I've got a high intensity bodybuilding ebook, and an abs ebook, just for like workouts. I created this called 610 abs. Basically it's 6 minute, 10 second AMRAP for abs. So it's like 6 minute abs wasn't long enough. You need to add 10 seconds. But there's a lot of ebooks that are coming out. Yeah, the programs, we've got a lot of people on it. I'm constantly trying to get better at what we're doing. We're actually launching a nutrition app tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
So I'm not sure who listens to this, or if it is a lot of CrossFitters or
it does
on here. But I would give you I was going to give you guys an offer if you wanted it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
we'll put it on there.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. So yeah, that's awesome. I picked a good time to interview you.
Yeah.
Very cool. So
the nutrition stuff, people have a lot of questions about. So.
Yeah. I mean, I always, especially being a diabetic, because I got diagnosed at 35. So it's kind of like I was a late onset of diabetes, but like I always get questions all the time about nutrition and stuff like that. To me, I'm like, tell them, I'm like, listen, I'm still working on it too. So, I mean, especially like,
always.
yeah, and it's especially harder for being a diabetic because if I eat one thing, like, and then the next day I eat the same thing, I'll just like either spike my blood sugar or, it's just like it's a 24-hour, 7 days a week, like concentrating and like figuring out what the hell I need to do. So, that damn roller coaster.
Yep.
Have you ever dealt with anybody with diabetes at all, or?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think there's more and more nowadays too.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's not something I think that you come out and just say like, hey, I'm diabetic. It's one of those things where over time you kind of find out, like you see them doing something, or they're maybe checking something. You're like, hey, and they're like, oh yeah, like I keep it under control. It's not really that bad. Or you're like, wow, like it's kind of I think it's more common now.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a lot of people. And I think there's a lot more education around it as well, probably. I mean, obviously you would know. So a lot of it really just comes around with staying healthy and knowing what to eat when, what's going on, like how what if this happens? Are you prepared? I mean, there's so much tracking. I'm like, man, if people just track the same stuff they do, like when they're like,
yeah.
And the thing is, I know a lot of people who are diabetic who they do the old school way where you're like, man, you understand, like there's some better ways that you could be, taking care of yourself.
But some of that stuff can be like really, really expensive. So that's the problem. So.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
There's so much stuff. I know a guy that has his whole freezer's full of Reese's. Just prepared.
Yeah.
Prepared.
Yeah, mine's Sour Patch Kids and like and cake icing. So I literally just have like a pouch of like ice cream, like cake icing, just right in my car,
just
and just slam it in there before I work out if I need to, or just like or anything else. It's crazy. So yeah. So do you have any like diabetics in your gym at all, or do you like how do you like watch out for them like during training?
I would say most of anybody that I would say like more high risk is not like a general member.
Yeah.
Most of the time we get a lot more overweight.
Yep.
Kind of out of shape, and they're just like, I need to change something. And we'll have them work with. We've got a dietitian and nurse practitioner who deals with most of those, and she'll work with developing a plan and working through that stuff, trying to wean them off of medications, because a lot of times they're on a lot of medications too. It's not just that they're. So we do a lot with individuals like that. Most of the time, the general public doesn't just come in and they have diabetes necessarily. Yeah. We'll get some extreme cases more so.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Where we work one-on-one.
Yeah, very cool. And do you have like adaptive athletes or anything like that, or like what's the general people that do come into your gyms?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I would say we do have some adaptive athletes. Actually, there's a dwarf that we have, a little person. He is Mikey online. Probably people have seen him. He started with me, and I remember his dad didn't know if he could do it, and he was a wrestler. And, he's always like, God, I can't hold stuff because of my hands. I don't think this will work for me. So I just made him work his grip strength to where he can do legless rope climbs now. He can do all these things where he was like, I didn't think I could do it. He could barely hold a kettlebell.
Wow.
Because his hands are so small. And now, so like he's one of those where now he's a big advocate. We definitely have, I would say we're very typical CrossFit gym.
Mm-hmm.
Not a ton of adaptive athletes. And when you get one, then you normally get a couple.
Yeah.
So we've got, we really do a good job, I think, of being able to work with anybody. But it's a matter of really, number one, you got to be comfortable to come in the door.
Yeah.
So it's more comfortable when a friend's in there.
Yep.
So we've had a few little people, and that's always fun to figure out scaling options of how to do movements that like a handstand push-up.
They can't do.
They're all his hand goes to here.
Yeah.
So we have to actually raise up where his how do we do it?
Do you use parallettes?
Well, we'll go just like plates to start.
Oh, okay.
And he has to go down. So like in the open, we had to submit, like it was years ago when they made the standard. We're like, this doesn't work. the standard doesn't work. So where this year they made, and it was a lot because of him, they made a little person division, like a shorter stature division this year.
Okay. Very cool.
So we're interested to see how that is. So like wall balls and stuff, he can't throw to a 10-foot target.
Yeah.
He just can't physically get it that high.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really interesting. Like we taught him a lot of scaling stuff. So he's competed at Wadapalooza and some other places, and they've contacted me like, what do we do? How do we do this? And I'm like, hey, here, this is how you can simulate that. And so they've tweaked a lot of things for him. So it's been really cool.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, you're kind of like a big helper for him, just spreading, kind of like almost helping him spread the word too.
Yeah, he's doing an awesome job himself. So he's killing it.
Awesome. So obviously you have like all these programs out, and you own 2 gyms, and you're training for, you're training. So how do you like handle like your time constraints, even having a family too? Like how do you balance like all these things into like, being able to kind of do all of it?
Oh man, I'll try to keep a short answer. There's a lot of it. I would say first off, I don't like, I know you did this. I don't like when people tell me I'm busy.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they're giving me an excuse.
Yeah.
To like, I don't even know. I don't really know, but I don't like it. So I don't like using the word busy because it's just a choice.
Okay.
Right? I'm just choosing what to do with my time. So I chose to have 2 kids, to be married, to own 2 brick and mortar businesses, to have another business that has multiple different streams, to work with all these different companies and people. And what I kind of do is every single day I write down my goals every day as soon as I wake up. And it's not like a goal of, hey, generic. It's literally like I pretend like I'm sitting as myself in 5 or 10 years, and I write down as if I've already completed them. And after I write them down, it motivates me to be like, well, dang, like that means that today I have to do X to get me closer to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I make them really big. I make them like where I look at them and it scares me, because like a question I tell somebody, like if you were thinking about money and how I create these, because this is really what does it is like if I said to you, let's just make up numbers. If you're like, man, my goal in 5 years is to make $250,000 like within 5 years, and then I'd say like, okay, think about in your head what you'd have to do that, and you could come up with like different things. Then you're like, oh, I don't really know about that. I don't know how this would work. And then if I said to you, now multiply it by 10, what would you have to do? You'd go, well, that's a lot different.
Yeah.
2.5 million. I'd have, and what you realize though is you have to do different things. You can't do the same thing to have the $250,000 income as you would to have the 2.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
So when you create, we create goals we think we can hit. So when we fail, we actually feel like failures because it wasn't even that hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you create these crazy, outrageous goals, like you have to do crazy, outrageous things to reach them.
Mm-hmm.
And you get so much farther. And when you fail so much farther ahead. That, like, that's the biggest thing is for me when it's like I see what I want to do, like the father I want to be, the husband I want to be, the business person, the athlete, all these different things. And it's like, man, I got to do X, Y, Z. I got to get people around me. I have to, instead of asking how to do stuff, I need to find out who can help me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things. So for me, it's very, very simple to know, like, today I need to focus on this.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow I need to focus on this. I need to figure out how to get 3 hours worth of training time in 75 minutes because I got to pick up my kids in an hour and 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very much like it's not necessarily prioritizing, but a lot of times we all say we want something, but it's just a wish.
Yeah.
When I want something, I go after it. When I want something, I do. I'll say like, oh, I wish I could just do that, but I realize like I don't do it. I don't like excuses. I don't give excuses. I'm not busy. I'm just choosing what to do with my time, and the fact that I get to choose what to do with my time is my win.
Yeah.
So everything I do is by choice.
Yeah. So it's almost like having people say entrepreneur on their title page on like Instagram. It's like really like I first of all I hate that word. So and it's like you're really not like what you're trying to do like a pyramid scheme like deal like what are you doing? You're not an entrepreneur. Just stop it. Just take it off. So it's like the Gary V effect. So.
Yeah, I look at like what I do as more of, I just create.
Yeah.
Like if I think there's value, I just create something. I'm like, so it's, I look at people, it's almost like we live in two different worlds. We have this world of like, I can't do that, I can't do this. Like, how do you, there's no way. And then there's other people who are like, that's all, I don't know how there's no way.
Yeah.
Like, it's simple. Like everything is very, very simple. We just look through a very, very small hole a lot of times, and we don't see all this opportunity. So I'm busy because I just can't stop.
Yeah.
Like, it's not work. It's not like my wife sometimes will be like, okay, and I'll do the same to her because she's the same way.
Yeah.
Like, we just get caught up in what we're doing. So, I always tell everybody, I'm like, I think we all have addictive personalities in this, I definitely do. And I feel like 5 years is a great time frame for me because your life changes so much.
Yeah.
That to say forever or, in 40 years, it's like, no, like in 5 years, I'm going to be living a completely different life. And that excites me. Like, what is my life? I always was like, man, when I'm done competing, what's next? Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And then it's like, after that thing, what am I going to do? I'm like, I get to live like 40 lives during this life. I like thinking of it that way than thinking of it like, well, I've made my choice. And I joke with people and say, like, an 18-year-old me who went to college, I can't look back and be like, well, that kid made all these decisions for now. This is why I sit in this desk job and do this thing because that 18-year-old kid told me to. It's like, no, I'm me and I can change my mind.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So we're getting close to the end. So obviously you're talking about goals. So one of the questions is, do you have a goal for like, personal, like business wise with your gyms, like coming up this year?
I have lots.
Yeah.
I have lots. I wouldn't say as like coming up this year. I don't like to put a time frame on anything.
Yeah.
Like I like to look at my goals every day, and like at the beginning of the year is a great time to like, check where you at. So because I change mine all the time. So I would say for me, like I'd love to have 10,000 people on my programming, and sell over 10,000 books. Purely because that's a ton of people that I get to help.
Yeah.
And when you're on the programming, like people are surprised that I still email, message, talk to everybody, review videos. I take care of every single person I possibly can, and I know one day I won't be able to the way that I can. So it's setting up that infrastructure to be able to have people that can do it just as good as I can, or at least I don't want to say like I do it really well, but I try.
Yeah, do the best you can. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Very cool. So, do you have a book that you like always recommend to people? Like, it could be like any type of book at all. Are you a big reader? First of all. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I listen. Yeah. I listen to books.
Okay. Yeah.
All the time. Like yeah, all the time. I would say if you're. Oh man, that's such a good question. So, for a lot of people, I think financial literacy is a big problem, especially for us Americans, and with COVID and with the pandemic, that says a lot. So I think increasing people's financial literacy and how they think about money is a big topic for me that I talk about a lot. And I would say in that realm, a book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is a great one I recommend to people. Let me see if I see any talk. Cause I sometimes I'm like going, there's some really deep stuff.
Yeah, I just picked up a book. It's called Something Declutter Dominate. It's like a 35-page book, and it helps you kind of like work on, not like just decluttering all like the extra stuff that you need to do, and actually do the stuff that you're really supposed to do. I'll send you a picture of it. It's yeah.
Dude, I'm gonna say his name wrong. The Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule.
Yep. Yeah.
Rule. So that's it. It's the same thing. Like if everything to shorten it, like 100% of what you do, only 20% of it gives you results. So it's finding that 20% and making that 100%, and then inside of that 100%, you can find the 20% that gets the results, and you just keep breaking it down. So it's Tim Ferriss says it. He's like, I spend the first half of my day trying to find the one domino that will knock everything over.
Yeah.
Like that's the secret. The secret isn't to do 100 things. It's like training. For me, when I program and when I try to get people better, for me, it's transfer of movement. What can I have you do one thing that can transfer over to 100 things?
Mm-hmm.
It's like for the day, finding the one thing that will make 100 things better.
Yeah.
Right? Like it might just be a mindset thing.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of it comes down to that. Like a lot of the stuff I read is mindset, just trying to improve yourself, and not like the motivational stuff, but like the real tangible stuff. But I would say Rich Dad Poor Dad is a great read for financial literacy. Breaking the habit of being yourself. There's so much. I'm literally like scrolling through books right now. I mean, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah.
Think and Grow Rich.
Yep. I was just going to say that one too.
Yeah. You'll get a lot of people that will tell you, like, do you know who Napoleon Hill was a scammer? I'm like, guys, the book was good.
Yeah,
okay?
like I don't care about his personal life. All I care about is like his book, his readings. So
people will tell me all the time about different things. But yeah, so for me, it's just about education. It's about growth.
Mm-hmm.
It's about not staying inside of our own little box and getting out and learning from others and growing. So for me, that's where I spend a lot of my time is trying to open up my thinking.
Very cool. Very cool. And then, so the last one is, I mean, since you have all this CrossFit experience and also the Grid Leagues experience, I forgot to talk about that, but all grid league, right?
That was fun. Yeah, that was fun.
I watched before I asked the last question. I saw a video of you, and I think you were a part of the Miami team? You were
Miami Surge.
Yeah, that's right. And so I watched a video of like the Grid League talking about like how like you guys lived in a house of like 10 people in one house, and like how crazy was that?
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It was crazy because it was just like, you don't know any of these people.
Yeah.
You're just like, I remember it was me, Alex Anderson, and Jacob Anderson stayed it was the laundry room, like where they had the washer and dryer, and they took out the washer and dryer, and we put a bunk bed in a floor bed. And there's just bunk beds in a floor bed, and then their brother, ZA came, Zach Anderson, and he stayed in there with us. It was just the 4 of us in this laundry room that was literally like 4 by 10 feet.
Oh my God.
So we would just lay down and talk.
Yeah, and especially ZA is a big guy too. He's like over 6'2" or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like 6'2". Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all big kids. I mean, even though it's like, Jacob's shorter. He's only like 5'8", but that was a lot of fun though. Like it was nice that you got to really build some relationships there.
Yeah. I was watching the video like you guys jumping in the pool and like just like hanging out and chilling out. I'm like, God, that'd be cool in my bachelor days. Like, I was like, I really think I'm 41. So I'm like, I really should just like go back even further just to like be back in my 30s and like just see what happens. So, but
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, granted, my 20s were bananas, so I really can't complain. So, but, what, with your CrossFit experience, what would you tell somebody like what to expect to try to get into be like a CrossFit athlete or just try to get in the CrossFit space?
As an athlete?
Yeah, we'll say as an athlete, yeah.
Details. The details matter so much. So much.
Yeah.
Not just like technically, like people are always like, oh, get a good coach. If you're starting, you don't know what a good coach is.
Yeah.
So the problem I think a lot of people have is they think that their coach is a good coach, and that's not to say that they're not, but you don't know what good is until you've had bad, and you don't know what bad is until you've had like really good.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're starting out and you know that you want to do that, you need to go and talk to a lot of people, find out who has been with who and how fast they improved and got better and how close somebody will be able to work with you, because you're not going to do it alone. And if you do it alone, it's just going to take you a lot longer.
Yeah. Totally agree.
So I think a lot, and when you have somebody else, it's the details. I mean, like literally Scott Tetlow, he's one of my athletes, and he came up for like 3 days, and he squats the same way every movement, and I'm like, you're just comfortable there, but you don't even know if that's your strongest position. So we changed some of his, like, we changed his back squat, and he was like, it's totally different. And I'm like, but you've never tried.
Yeah.
You've never tried. Mm-hmm. He's like, this isn't unbelievable. I'm so much stronger in this position. And I'm like, yeah, because if you just think you're okay, you always, every rep counts. If I do 400 air squats, all 400 of those are data.
Mm-hmm.
It's data.
Yeah.
I get to adjust, feel, it's that body awareness. So the details allow for that body awareness, and that's so key.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, awesome. Well, I know you talked earlier about your nutrition program and the discount code. So for my listeners, what's the discount code you were going to use?
Well, so we'll have. I can actually give you a link.
Okay,
if you want.
That's fine. Yeah.
Pop it in click on it. So you can actually get. The deal we're doing is if you buy the Zeus High Intensity Bodybuilding ebook, you'll get my abs ebook for free, and you'll get access to the nutrition first month included.
Okay, very cool.
So you'll get the link for 1 month on the nutrition app, which is basically the nutrition app runs. It's only $15 a month is what we're going to start with, and it's daily information where there's also access to a coach, so you can ask questions.
Oh, cool, very cool. Yeah.
But it's more of a developmental thing, more of creating a lifestyle over them. Like here's 50 things you got to do for the next 30 days. It's like, no, every day you'll get a new thing that'll help educate you and teach you. And any type of person can come on, whether you're vegan or, if you're just, you want to be paleo or you're doing a whole 30, whatever it is that you're doing, you can come on, and we can be able to help you inside of it.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So I just want to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you and just talk about you and your games experience and the Zeus method and being a dad too, which is really important to me as well. So and like I said, thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah, dude. Hey, no problem. I appreciate you having me on, and it was fun just to get to chat.
All right, awesome. Have a good one.